Ever think about those old work accounts, from companies you've left behind? Especially like if it's a startup that went bust, just kind of out of sight, out of mind, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But what if someone could just like waltz right into those accounts just by buying the company's old domain name?
Oh, yeah.
We're diving into that today based on some pretty unsettling security research.
Unfortunately, it's not as far-fetched as it sounds.
Yeah.
The vulnerability lies in Google's Sign In with Google feature.
Oh, yeah.
You know that handy button we all use to access, I don't know, everything these days?
Yeah.
ChatGPT, Slack, Zoom,
Mm-hmm.
even some HR platforms with like super sensitive personal data.
Okay, now I'm officially intrigued and a little freaked out.
Yeah.
So, who uncovered this and how deep does this rabbit hole go?
The credit or blame, depending on how you look at it, goes to Dylan Airy, a security researcher from Truffle Security.
Okay.
He didn't just theorize this. He actually bought up expired domain names and used them to log into former employee accounts across a whole slew of services.
Ugh.
And let me tell you, some of the stuff he found is enough to make your hair stand on end.
Hold on, he actually got into other people's accounts just by owning the domain.
Yeah.
That's wild. Walk me through how that's even possible.
It all boils down to how Google's OAuth, the system behind that sign in with Google button, actually works.
Oh.
It relies on these things called claims, which are basically bits of information like your email address and the domain associated with it.
Okay.
The problem is it doesn't necessarily verify if the domain ownership has changed hands.
Oh.
So if you snag an expired domain, it's like finding a skeleton key to any former employee accounts that use that domain.
Okay, that's starting to make sense, but it also feels like a pretty major oversight. Almost too simple to be true.
Yeah.
What did Google have to say about this when it came to light?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting. Initially, they basically shrugged it off, labeling it as won't fix.
Won't fix.
Right.
So they just dismissed it outright. That seems like a bold move considering the potential consequences. What changed their minds?
It took Airy presenting his findings at ShmooCon, a major security conference, to get Google to reconsider.
Okay.
And, let's just say, offer a token of appreciation in the form of a bounty.
A bounty. Sounds like we're about to get into the nitty-gritty of how the tech world responds to these kinds of discoveries.
Yeah.
This is where it gets really interesting for me because it's not just about the technical flaw, but the whole ecosystem around it.
Right. Yeah, it's true. The bounty system is fascinating.
Yeah.
Like this weird dance between security researchers and tech companies.
Yeah.
On one hand, you have these researchers digging deep,
Mm-hmm.
finding vulnerabilities and like responsibly disclosing them.
Right.
And on the other hand, you have companies like Google trying to balance innovation and speed with security.
Yeah.
It's a constant push and pull.
And let's be real, the won't fix response probably raised a few eyebrows.
Yeah.
Did Google offer any explanations for that initial reaction?
Well, their reasoning was that this vulnerability relied on a specific set of circumstances, including developers not using a security feature they already had in place, called the subfield.
Okay, so Google is essentially saying, we already have a fix for this, developers just need to use it.
That's the gist of it.
Okay.
They claim this subfield acts as a kind of unique identifier that can prevent this type of domain takeover.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But Airy, the researcher who discovered this whole thing, seems to disagree about the effectiveness of this so-called subfield, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
He argues that it's not a foolproof solution and that the vulnerability is still exploitable even if developers are using it.
So we're left with this uncertainty. Google says fix, the researcher says not so fast.
Right.
What does this tell us about the state of security in the tech world?
Right. It definitely raises some concern.
Yeah.
You would hope that something as fundamental as domain ownership verification would be baked into these systems from the start,
Right.
not treated as an optional add-on.
Yeah. It's almost like we've become so reliant on these sign in with Google buttons for convenience that we've overlooked some pretty basic security principles.
It's a classic trade-off between user experience and security.
Right.
Companies are always striving for that frictionless one-click experience, but sometimes that comes at the expense of robust security measures.
This has me thinking, if a tech giant like Google could potentially miss something like this, what does it mean for all the smaller companies and services out there?
Right.
Are we all just walking around with unlocked digital doors?
It's a sobering thought, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it underscores the importance of independent security researchers like Dylan Airy.
Yeah.
They're the ones pushing the boundaries, finding these vulnerabilities before the bad guys do.
It's like they're the digital watchdogs barking at the door when they sense danger.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And their role is becoming increasingly critical as the attack surface expands with the rise of cloud services,
Right.
IoT devices, and the interconnectedness of everything.
Okay, so we've established that this vulnerability is real, it's potentially widespread,
Yeah.
and Google's initial response wasn't exactly reassuring.
Right.
What can our listeners do to protect themselves right now? Should we all be scrambling to delete our Google accounts?
Deleting your Google account might be a bit extreme,
Okay.
but there are definitely some practical steps you can take to mitigate your risk.
I'm all ears. Hit me with your best security advice.
First and foremost, do a digital spring cleaning.
Okay.
Go through all those old work accounts,
Yeah.
especially from companies that are no longer around,
Mm-hmm.
and delete them.
Okay.
I know it can be tedious,
Yeah.
but it's worth the effort.
I'm already feeling guilty about all those dusty logins I've been ignoring.
Oh, yeah.
Anything else I should add to my digital to-do list?
Absolutely. Next up, password hygiene.
Okay.
Make sure you're using strong, unique passwords for all your important accounts.
Right.
And I can't stress this enough. Enable two-factor authentication wherever possible. It adds that extra layer of security that can make a huge difference.
Okay. Strong passwords, two-factor authentication. Got it.
Yeah.
But what about this whole sign in with Google thing?
Right.
Should we be avoiding it altogether now?
I wouldn't say avoid it completely,
Okay.
but definitely use it with caution.
Oh,
Think about the type of information you're sharing with that service
yeah.
and whether it's worth the potential risk.
So it's about being more mindful, more selective about when and where we use those convenient login options.
Exactly. We've become so accustomed to that one-click ease of use
Right.
that we sometimes forget to stop and think about the security implications.
It's like we're willingly handing over the keys to our digital kingdoms without even checking the locks.
That's a powerful image.
Yeah.
And it brings up another important point, the data we're sharing.
Right.
We need to be more aware of our digital footprint.
Hmm.
Every time we fill out a form, take a quiz, or even like a post, so we're leaving a trail of information that can be used to build a profile of who we are and what we do.
I never really thought about it that way, but it makes sense. It's like we're constantly dropping digital breadcrumbs without realizing who might be following the trail.
And those breadcrumbs can be used in ways we might not anticipate.
Oh,
It's not just about hackers stealing our credit card number.
yeah.
It's about companies aggregating our data,
Yeah.
building profiles, and potentially using that information in ways that might not align with our privacy preferences.
So what's the solution? Do we all need to become digital hermits, shunning the online world and living off the grid?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
It's not about disconnecting entirely. It's about finding a balance.
Okay.
We can still enjoy the benefits of the online world,
Hmm.
but we need to do it with awareness and intention.
So it's not about deleting Facebook and living in a digital bunker.
Right.
It's about being informed, making conscious choices, and taking steps to protect our privacy.
Precisely. It's about becoming more savvy digital citizens, understanding the risks, and making informed decisions about how we interact online.
That's a great way to frame it.
Yeah.
It's not about fear-mongering, it's about empowerment.
Right.
We have the power to control our digital destinies,
Yeah.
but we need to be equipped with the knowledge and tools to do so effectively.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
We can't just leave our listeners hanging with a sense of doom and gloom.
Right.
Let's talk about some practical tools and strategies that can help them level up their digital security game. So, where do we even begin? I feel like a lot of people just throw their hands up when it comes to digital security. It all seems so complicated and overwhelming.
I get it. It can definitely feel like a daunting task.
Yeah.
But honestly, even small steps can make a big difference.
Okay.
It's like building any good habit, start small, stay consistent, and don't try to do everything at once.
Okay, that's reassuring. So what's a good baby step for someone who wants to take control of their digital security but doesn't know where to start?
A great place to begin is with a password manager.
Okay.
It takes the pressure off remembering dozens of unique, complex passwords and allows you to generate and store them securely.
Password managers, those are the tools that basically create and remember super strong passwords for you, right? I've heard of them, but I've never really looked into them. Are they easy to use?
Absolutely. Most of them are incredibly user-friendly. You basically create one master password, and the manager takes care of the rest. It'll even alert you if you're reusing passwords across different sites, which is a huge security no-no.
That's a game changer. I'm definitely adding download a password manager to my list. What else can we do to boost our digital defenses?
Another simple but effective step is enabling two-factor authentication wherever possible.
Okay.
It adds an extra layer of security by requiring you to confirm your identity through a second device, like your phone.
Two-factor authentication, that's the one where you get a text message with a code, right?
Yeah.
I've seen that option on a lot of sites, but honestly, sometimes it just feels like an extra step. Is it really that important?
Trust me, it's worth the slight inconvenience. Think of it like adding a deadbolt to your front door.
Okay.
It might take a few extra seconds to unlock, but it makes it a lot harder for someone to break in.
Okay, that's a great analogy. I'm starting to see how these small changes can really add up to create a much more secure digital life.
Hmm.
But what about the bigger picture? What about those vulnerabilities we talked about earlier, like the oath flaw?
Right.
Is there anything we can do as individuals to protect ourselves from those kinds of systemic issues?
It's true. Some vulnerabilities are beyond our individual control, but we can still make choices that minimize our risk.
Okay.
For example, be mindful of what information you're sharing online and with whom.
So maybe think twice before taking that "Which Disney princess are you?" quiz that asks for access to your entire Facebook profile.
Exactly. Those quizzes and apps can be fun, but they often collect a surprising amount of data. Ask yourself if the entertainment value is really worth the potential privacy trade-off.
That's a good point, yeah. It's easy to get caught up in the moment and click allow without really considering the consequences.
And if you're really concerned about privacy, consider using a privacy-focused browser or search engine.
Okay.
They're designed to minimize data collection and tracking.
This is all great advice, but it also makes me wonder, what about the companies behind these services?
Right.
What responsibility do they have to ensure our data is secure and our privacy is protected?
That's a crucial question. I think we're seeing a shift in the tech industry towards greater transparency and accountability when it comes to data privacy and security.
Hopefully that trend continues because it feels like we're placing a lot of trust in these companies to handle our information responsibly.
We are, and that trust should be earned, not assumed. We need to hold these companies accountable and demand better security practices.
It's like that digital social contract we talked about earlier. We're providing our data, and in return, we expect them to treat it with respect and protect it from harm.
Exactly. And just like any contract, we have the right to walk away if the terms aren't being met. We can choose to use services that prioritize privacy and security, and we can vote with our wallets by supporting companies that align with our values.
That's empowering. It's a reminder that we're not powerless in this digital landscape. We have choices, we have a voice, and we can make a difference.
I completely agree. It's about reclaiming our digital agency and shaping a future where technology works for us, not against us.
So to bring this all back to our initial deep dive into that Google OAuth vulnerability, what's the overarching takeaway for our listeners?
I think this specific incident serves as a wake-up call. It highlights the importance of being proactive and informed when it comes to our online security.
Right.
It's not just about reacting to threats, it's about establishing good digital hygiene habits and taking control of our digital lives.
And it's a reminder that security isn't just a tech issue, it's a human issue.
Yeah.
Our actions, our choices, and our awareness all play a crucial role in shaping a safer, more secure digital world.
Beautifully put. It's about creating a culture of security where we all understand the risks, take responsibility for our actions, and work together to create a more resilient digital ecosystem.
I love that. A culture of security. It's a powerful vision for the future. And I think our listeners are now equipped with the knowledge and inspiration to be part of that movement. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. And remember, stay vigilant, stay informed, and stay empowered.